More than welcome to start and share your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much and good afternoon to everybody. And thank you very much for joining and welcome to this breakaway. We thank you very much for joining and we appreciate that you joined us. I'm just setting up a few things. Okay. The presentation, ladies and gentlemen, is obviously about this. This is breakaway number 3, which is the topic is administering technical mathematics practical assessment task for the first time in 2021. And I am Mlungiseleli Njomeni, the technical mathematics and technical sciences specialist at DBE. Now, if you look at our presentation, we will be looking at the introduction of practical assessment task, introduction of practical assessment task in technical mathematics. We shall also be looking at the management plan on administration of the practical assessment task in technical mathematics. And then we shall look at the presentations that focus on the mediation of technical mathematics PET guidelines as well as tasks. And then we shall look at the moderation, just to overemphasize on the moderation of technical mathematics PET as well as conclusion. So that's basically our presentation. Right. If you look at the introduction of practical assessment task in technical mathematics, you will realize that all technical subject specializations were introduced with a component of practical assessment task, including technical sciences. That happened in 2016 when we introduced technical subject specializations. Like in electrical, we will have electronics, we will have digital electronics and so on, and power systems and so on. Right. Then we introduced those together with technical mathematics and technical sciences. And now all those specializations, including engineering, graphics and designs, which is EGD, compulsory to all learners, as well as technical sciences, they were introduced with practical assessment tasks. However, technical mathematics was introduced without this practical component. Right. So we are here in the Sasol conference now. Sasol, as a big partner of the Department of Basic Education, was at the forefront in developing the technical mathematics and technical sciences textbooks, as well as training of subject advisors and teachers. Then in December 2020, we fast forward now to December 2020, after a lot of calls from teachers, from all stakeholders concerned about the performance in technical mathematics. And one of the things that we realized was that it is a reality. It is a reality that we are having a serious problem with the mathematics that we are having, that is technical mathematics that we are having. And therefore, we need to rethink on what is it that needs to be done. And we realized that the learners who are doing technical subjects are practical learners, are learners who like to do things practically. And therefore, not having practical component in technical mathematics may be one of the reasons why they are not doing well in the subject, being the only content subject without practical component, which is practical assessment task. Then in December 2020, the DBE approved the abridged CAPS Section 4 to be implemented from January 2021. And then in that abridged Section 4 of the CAPS document, which was approved via circular number S4 of 2021, practical assessment task for technical mathematics was part of those changes that were approved by DBE in improving that Section 4, right? Now, as I've mentioned, Department of Basic Education communicated the approved CAPS Section 4 through Circular S4 of 2021, which was a way of communicating it to the whole system. So in other words, this has been communicated to the whole system through Circular S4 of 2021. But then that was not enough then, as now DBE through the Chief Directorate National Assessment and Public Examination, NAPE, they had now to sit down as a panel of examiners and moderators to develop the practical assessment task guidelines with all the tasks. Then in May 2021, though this was belated or this was delayed, the practical assessment task for technical mathematics was then approved by Umalusi, our quality assurer, as the Department of Basic Education. And therefore, Circular E11, I'm mentioning these circulars so that colleagues and everybody who's in the conference can go to the Department of Basic Education website and follow these circulars. So was issued this circular E11 on the 14th of May 2021. Now, it was officially releasing practical assessment task for technical mathematics, which was approved by Umalusi, that is practical assessment task guidelines for technical mathematics. All right. Then immediately after it was approved, obviously it was approved way before, it was a week before when it was approved. So the training of provincial coordinators, subject advisors, as well as teachers had to start immediately. I think that was after the 7th of May when Umalusi approved the PET guidelines for technical mathematics. Then that made now us to plan such that the training starts on the 10th of May, where there was a meeting, the first meeting to officially release practical assessment task guidelines for technical mathematics to provincial coordinators. And then we were preparing the system on technical mathematics PET. Then immediately after that, obviously, the practical assessment task was mediated by the provincial coordinators to the subject advisors and later to the teachers. And the administration of all, that is, and its administration to all technical schools, and is continuing as per management plan issued together with the circular. Right, as you know that we are having the management plan. Then in this presentation, colleagues, I also decided to add a few slides talking to this management plan, because I felt it is very important for us to have this management plan included in this presentation, which is also in the website. Remember, 3 things were uploaded in the website. In fact, there were 4 if I include the Afrikaans version of the practical assessment task guidelines for technical mathematics in 2021. So it was Circular E11, which was formally releasing, signed by the Director General of the Department of Basic Education. And then the second document was Practical Assessment Task Guidelines, PET Guidelines for Technical Mathematics English version. Third document, Practical Assessment Task PET Guidelines for Technical Mathematics Afrikaans version. And fourth document, the document that you probably are seeing in your screen now, which is basically the management plan. Since we are administering for the first time, we said, let us have a management plan that will guide everybody and guide the whole system on what will be done and when that will be done. All right. Then the first thing on the 10th of May, as I indicated, it was the virtual meeting with provincial coordinators. That was the first level of mediation that took place, and all 9 provinces were represented. All right. Then from now, the following day, 11th to the 14th of May, the provinces or the provincial coordinators in all provinces had meetings with subject advisors to have, it was a virtual meeting to have PET guidelines as well as PET task 1 being mediated. We didn't want to mediate all the tasks at the same time. We said the first meeting must focus on PET guidelines, how to administer, what will be done, as well as PET task 1. That is task 1, which was done from the 11th to the 14th in preparing the system once more through the subject advisors done by the provincial coordinators this time. Then after that, the provincial team led by the provincial coordinator was established, and represented responsibilities were distributed among the team members who's going to do what in in mediating to the teachers. Now, from on the 14th of May, on the day, 14th of May, like I said, PET guidelines were shared with provincial coordinators, which were obviously shared with subject advisors as well as teachers. But then we further went a step further, working with a Chief Directorate National Assessment as well as Public Examinations, NAPE, NAPE, as I indicated. They were shared, these PET guidelines, with all the 3 tasks to the provincial heads of exams, so that they are also distributed via the examination align function or platform. Right? And then also we said we cannot leave behind the Chief Directorate Communications, which usually assists us to communicate as well as upload these in the website. These by the 14th, they were in the website. All right? Very important. And then now, from the 12th to the 18th of May, provinces now had what we call level 3 mediation, where provincial subject advisors as well as subject coordinators now had meetings or mediation sessions or training sessions with teachers now during that week 12 to 18. And let me emphasize this, colleagues. What we emphasized was that these PET guidelines are uploaded in the website. Therefore, they are there to be accessed by all learners and by all parents and by all stakeholders, people who are interested in the teaching of technical mathematics in the whole country. Therefore, we emphasize that it is very important for teachers themselves to assist, or schools to assist learners by making sure that they print these PET guidelines for learners and give them. You can print we even said you can print the PET guidelines to guide learners together with task 1 only and give it to learners, because the idea of having practical assessment tasks is to allow or expose learners to what is it that they are expected to do practically in technical mathematics, like other practical subjects. We do not want to surprise them on the day, because there are also resources that go with it. Therefore, it is very important for us as teachers, for us as schools, for us as subject advisors, for us as provincial coordinators, for us as DPE, to make sure that we expose learners. In other words, all learners in the country have access to the PET guidelines, not being surprised on the day. Remember, practical assessment task is not an additional SBA task. It is a practical assessment task. Imagine if you go to test for a driver's license, and then you are just expected or surprised on the day when you have to go to the testing center, and there's a traffic officer sitting next to you. You don't even know what is a clutch, what is a steering, what do you turn, what is a handbrake. You go to a driving school before and practice how to drive. What do you do? This is exactly how we administer practical assessment tasks. It is not an additional SBA task. The most important thing is just to make sure that on the day of administering this practical assessment task, it is an individual work. In other words, we do not expect learners to just submit on the day. That is not acceptable. That is not the way it is done, because what learners will do, they will ask people to do it for themselves. We want them to do it on their own, to do it as individual work on the day. But there's nothing stopping them in researching and going around asking their uncles, their cousins, their brothers, their sisters, whoever can assist, to assist them to say, how is this practical done? So that mediation was also done. I believe all of us who are here have been exposed to at least PET Task 1 mediation as well as PET guidelines. Then the plan continued, colleagues, to say a PET Task 1 must be administered by all schools from the 19th through the 31st of May. So we said PET task 1 must be administered by all schools, and then the monitoring would then happen. I also monitored a few schools in Gauteng as well as Eastern Cape, and then on the 31st of May was planned to be the last day of administering PET task 1 by all learners. All right. Remember, in the PET guidelines, there is an indication that if they don't finish on the day, you collect the scripts and then you keep them following day, they resume. But we always encourage that it must be done on the day. Then from the 1st to the 4th of June, we then did mediation of PET task 1 to provincial coordinators as well as subject advisors. And then while during the same week, it was a mop-up monitoring and support, ensuring that all schools have administered PET task 1 and all learners have submitted. I must say I was a bit shocked in the polls when I saw that about 36% of the colleagues who responded to the poll indicated that they have not received PET guidelines, which I said to the provincial coordinators is something that we must look at. But I think perhaps maybe some of the colleagues who were responding were not necessarily teaching technical mathematics. So that was my assumption. But in the polls, in the Q&A, you are free to indicate that you have not received in your own school. You don't know what we are talking about. Then we can quickly attend to that with immediate effect. Otherwise, as far as the plan is concerned and the reports that we have been getting as DPE is that all schools received PET guidelines. They are also in the website. So it is very important, colleagues, that we indicate if we have not received in case there are a few schools that did not receive. But I personally don't want to believe that that is the case. But anyway, I will see from the Q&As as well as the chats. I will go there before this session is over. Then from the 7th to the 11th, now we formally released the PET task 1 marking guidelines. They are also in the website as you speak, so that anyone can access, including learners. They can see obviously that this is what was expected of them when they were given. Then this obviously was shared with provincial heads of examination as well as heads of exams and communications as indicated. They are also in the website as we speak. Right. So the plan continues, colleagues. I'm not going to be explaining every line. You need to go to the website if you don't have this document called Management Plan for Administration of Technical Mathematics PET. It is there. Ask your subject advisor, ask your provincial coordinator. You can go to the website as well. We can even share them in the in this platform. As Dr. Malinga indicated, that this platform will be open for the next 11 months. So you can access even this presentation that I'm doing in case you did not get it. We will upload it there, as well as all the PETs, as well as this plan that I'm presenting right now. And then on the 14th to 18th of June, I think the date was the 18th, when I formally mediated PET task 2 and task 3 to all provincial coordinators and subject advisors. Yes, because of the third wave, colleagues, it did not happen that we meet physically in the same venue, which is what we wanted. But then we said virtual meetings will be held if there are challenges with face-to-face meetings, which could not happen. We did it virtually, and subject advisors from across the country attended that. I think during this week now, we are busy mediating with you, colleagues, that is the teachers. But at the same time, I am still emphasizing learners are supposed to have PET task 2 in their possession as we speak, according to the plan 21 to 25, 21 to 25 June, which is obviously this week. We are mediating task 2 and task 3 with teachers together with subject advisors and provincial coordinators with you, colleagues, teachers. Now, the most important thing now is that learners must have in possession PET task 2. And then by that, they are revising, they are researching, they are asking for assistance. And this PET task 2, the nice thing about it, or the interesting thing, is in Euclidean geometry, which is the most challenging topic for learners. So it means we need to really encourage learners to get assistance, and is very practical. This PET task 2 is very practical, colleagues. Remember, maybe let me emphasize this, colleagues, and say, in technical mathematics, a lot of people were asking, in the mathematics field, where do we get practical? Is it even possible? And then we said, look, in EGD, what is their practical assessment task? It is about drawing, which is what they do. In technical sciences, what is their practical assessment task? It is experiments, which is what they do. Then in technical mathematics, what will be our practical assessment task? Will obviously be whatever that we know it is practical in the field of mathematics. And we looked around, we noted that there are two main things that we can pride ourselves of in terms of practical. One is investigation, two is application. So our practical assessment tasks, colleagues, are usually containing or consisting of two main things, which is practical investigation. Remember, when you talk investigation, then it means you are talking practical. They do investigate practically. We do have in the mathematics field generally, not only in technical mathematics, in the mathematics field, we do have what we call practical investigation, and that is our practical. And then we do have practical applications, and that is our practical. So we didn't even have to look further and try and look for things that are not there. It's things that are there. Practical investigation plus practical application that constitutes our practical assessment tasks, colleagues. Then from the 28th of June to the 8th of July, which is about 2 weeks, we're expecting to administer practical assessment task 2, PET 2, all schools, so that before we formally close on the 9th of July, at least PET task 2 has been administered. What is outstanding is just to go through the what we call the marking guidelines. Remember, colleagues, in the marking guidelines, if you have been in the mathematics field, if you have been in the technical field, if you have been in education, you will know that the first draft of any marking guidelines usually has some challenges where now it was envisaged that the questions were asking this, and then the interpretation by learners, and then the teachers yourselves, colleagues, are usually playing a major role in this, to say a learner could have interpreted this like this. That is why we have discussions also on the marking guidelines. And we did it with the provincial coordinators where they raised their issues, and we had notes that we added in the presentation that I had prepared. We added notes there so that we say, if a learner answers like this, then we accept, then we don't accept, then we give so many marks. So we are expecting that, colleagues. I am not going to go through now the remaining plans, but it is there. So you will see in my presentation, you see that there is administration of PET task 3 showing as well. And then the most important thing is that now, the last one, which is there, it talks to on-site moderation of practical assessment tasks by subject advisors, provincial coordinators, as well as DPE coordinator. There could also be umalusi wanting to see if this practical assessment task was administered well. That is why, colleagues, I am emphasizing and saying it is very important that we make sure that when administering PET, it is administered under controlled environment. In PET Task 1, colleagues, the main challenge that I saw in the few schools that I managed to visit was that most of the schools just exposed learners to PET on the day. I guess because of time frames, colleagues, we do understand, but that has to improve now. We must expose learners to the PET tasks before. This is not a test which learners must see it on the day. I repeat, they must be exposed to this PET task way before, a week or two before, so that they are given a chance to go and research, to practice. For instance, task 2 requires them to use a twine, to use or a string to measure, to use a pair of scissors, sellotape, glue sticks, tracing papers, and so on and so on. They must practice how to use these things. They can't be using them for the first time when PET is administered, because some of them won't even know what is a tracing paper, what is a string, how it is used, how to use a pair of scissors. Remember, colleagues, we must expose them. They must practice. So give them the PET task 2 now. They must take it home, prepare, ask for assistance anywhere. Then on the day, they must not submit. We are not accepting work that is done outside the classroom and just submitted. We want them to demonstrate to us that whatever assistance that they got, it made them to be able to do this practical assessment task for technical mathematics. I'm overemphasizing that, colleagues, deliberately. So we will be obviously moving around as subject advisors, as provincial coordinators, DPE, as well as umalusi. And when we do that, we may want them to demonstrate and say, learners, can you please measure this, measure that angle? show us that you are the one who was measuring. You didn't ask your brother or your cousin or whoever to measure for you and just submit. Show us, demonstrate to us that you did that. Just like you would do when you go and test for a driver's license, for instance. You would ask anyone outside to assist your brother, your sister, to assist on how to drive, how to do clutch balancing, how to do reverse and so on. Then on the day you are alone there at the testing center, you don't bring your brother or your cousin and say, please drive with me or drive for me. No, we want them to do this practical assessment task on their own. Very important, colleagues. I'm overemphasizing this deliberately. Now we're going to look at the mediation of PET guidelines, as well as the 3 tasks, and I have added the marking guidelines mediation because it has already been done for task 1 only. Then for task 2 and task 3, we are yet to do that. So I will just go through it, and I may, for obvious reasons that you have been exposed to this, but for the sake, especially, it is very important that perhaps we go through it. One not technical mathematics, but we have tried this breakaway to see what is it, how does our practice.
Now, the presentation outline for PET guidelines first, because the first document that we presented, it was PET guidelines. Introduction, as indicated. Circular S4 of 2021. Let me just go back once. Circular S4 of
2021 is the one which was used by DBE, signed by the Director General, which was used to communicate to all stakeholders of the Department of Basic Education the changes that were brought about in section 4 of the CAPS document, abridged section 4. It was approved in 2020, but then the circular was circular S4 of 2021, I believe so. Now, it communicated that and said, please take note that there are changes in section 4 of the CAPS documents for all subjects. And then obviously for technical mathematics, one of the notable changes was the introduction of practical assessment task in grade 12 and grade 10 to grade 12 from 2021, which we have to comply. And then the introduction of PET in technical mathematics automatically brought about changes in the weightings in resulting now. So generally, under normal circumstances, let me emphasize, for all grades, under normal circumstances, for all grades for 2021, the final mark should be calculated as follows. It should be 25% SPA as usual, then 25% PET, and then 50% exams to give you 100%. But now this happens in grade 12 in 2021. Remember, in grade 10 as well as grade 11, there are slight changes adjusted because of the rotation system and the changes that had to be brought about, where we said SPA must constitute 60% and then 20% PET and 20% exam. You'll just go back to the documents that were actually communicating this. But here I'm just going to be talking about grade 12 only in from 2021 and onwards until further notice. We are saying there will be paper 1, as you know, as well as paper 2, which will be external, as we know. That is an external paper. Then it will be 150, which is 300, as we know. And then now, sorry for that. This thing just went back. And then it will be 50%, as I've already indicated above. And then we're having now practical assessment task, which will be out of 100 in terms of the marks and the weighting, then converted to 25%, and then it will be the normal SPA, which you know that it will be converted to 25% as well, or which will constitute 25%. So basically, this is how the resulting for grade 12 in 2020 will have to take place. I am emphasizing again, colleagues, this practical assessment task is not SPA. SPA plays its own role, and it is actually administered the way it is administered for a purpose. Then practical assessment task, learners must be exposed to it, practice how to do it. Then on the day of administration, it must just be a matter of them demonstrating that they can do this on their own. They must not be surprised on the day. Otherwise, it will not even serve the purpose. Main purpose to expose learners to the practical component of technical mathematics and to make sure that they do practical part of it, which will obviously assist them in terms of the weighting in the resulting. Right. I think I've already talked about this, some of these, and then okay, for now, for the introduction, that is for PET guidelines, colleagues. This is the introduction. This is the document that you should be having. If you don't have, you can quickly go to the website and download it now. It is there. You can just say technical math. Even if you go to Google and say technical math 2021 technical mathematics PET, and simply it will pop out, or just go to DPE website and look for practical assessment tasks. It will be there, or just go to the circulars, circular E11, circular E11. It will also have a link where you can get these documents. Then you will get them. So basically, we're having this situation. The what you call the table of contents is like that one. As you can see down there, you will see that the topics are complex. The task 1 is on complex numbers, task 2 is on Euclidean geometry, and task 3 is on circles, angles, and angular movement. So this one on complex numbers is done and dusted. Then we are busy now with the mediation of Euclidean geometry 1, and then later in term 3 we are going to do task 3, which is on circles, angles, and angular movement. So in the table of contents, there is introduction, which is what I've talked about, and then teacher guidelines, how to administer PET, it is there. Moderation of PET, how it will be moderated, it is there. And then learner guidelines, and then it will direct guide learners how to go about with practical assessment tasks in technical mathematics, and then it will be moderation. What is it that we'll be looking for? And then it will be conclusion. And then after that, it will be just all the tasks. So the wise thing is just to download PET guidelines, because everything is there, and make sure that you give learners a copy of PET guidelines once and for all. Give them, and then on the day of administration, you just photocopy, print and photocopy the task at hand, so that you give learners blank workbooks or worksheets, because it's in the form of worksheets. Learners are answering on it, right? I won't be going through and talking a lot about that one, colleagues, because it's in the PET guidelines. It's just a matter of knowing that now in 2021, there are 18 subjects now that are having PET, and they are mentioned there, and technical mathematics is now included. Previously, there were 17. Now, we are saying the tasks are compulsory, so that learners are resulted and constitute 25%. In other words, learners must complete all the 3 tasks under practical assessment task in technical mathematics. Right now, generally, under normal circumstances, let me emphasize, the practical assessment task is implemented during the first 3 terms of the school year. That is why now in technical mathematics, when it was approved very late by Umalusi, obviously because there were challenges even in developing it. Not that I'm saying Umalusi was the reason for it. No, it was because we started late as the Department of Basic Education to develop it, because we were waiting for approval first, which was done through circular S4. Once it was done in 2020, in February 2021, we then started to say, let's now develop it. And it took a long time. You can imagine nobody knew how it should look like, but we had to make it work. And I must thank once more Umalusi for approving the PET guidelines for technical mathematics. Then we said task 1 and task 2 must then be administered in term 2, and then task 3 to be administered in term 3, because we don't want to overlap to term 4, because in term 4 we should be focusing on exams. So it is very important. So for all subjects, that is how it is done. PET tasks are administered up to term 3. Then in term 3 we finalize everything to do with PET, and then we focus in exams in term 4. Right. Then in number 2, as I indicated, teacher guidelines, how to administer the PETs. The following documents must be available for a formal task instructions explaining the procedure to be followed, the worksheets which we have, teacher guidelines which we have. Then we are saying in bullet number 3, the teacher's guidelines with task instructions, worksheets, and marking guidelines. Then we are saying the teacher's guidelines must not be released to learners. In other words, we are not releasing the marking guidelines to learners. That is why marking guidelines are not in the website. We keep them. And then once a task is being administered or the administration has been finished, then it is then that we are able now to release it. We first do a mediation of it with provincial coordinators, subject advisors, and teachers before it can be formally released, so that we can be able to correct also possible mistakes or possible improvements that need to be effected in the memo. Then we are encouraging colleagues, this is very important, this is big, this is huge. We're encouraging teachers to compile guidelines, memoranda for the real results of the task conducted. And then we say the moment you receive the PET guidelines, before you receive the memo, in fact, this is what should have happened already for all the 3 tasks. You should, all of us, we should try and answer. It's a worksheet. We try and answer and see if it really works or not. So that if there are some things that are not going to work, we indicate now, we say, that one is not going to work and we need to improve, we need to change it. And I must say, it helped us in task 1 because we had to have an errata for a certain graph paper where it was not possible for learners to draw a certain vector. I think it was on vectors that was going to fit in that particular graph paper. Then we had an errata, and then there was a question also which was asking learners to convert to polar form, yet already the question was already in polar form. Then we had to correct it and say it is in rectangular form, because those things happen even maybe during the editing stage of the development of that. So these things happened before it was released and nobody picked it up except to be picked by teachers. So you colleagues really are playing a major role, because you are able to pick even small mistakes that maybe we could not pick up as DPE, as provincial coordinators, or even as subject advisors. But some of these things were raised by provincial coordinators, some were raised by subject advisors, some were raised by teachers, which we appreciate everybody who is involved. Now, this bullet, these 2 bullets that follow, tasks must be done individually. It's an overemphasis to what I said. I said it before. Each learner must record his or her own individual data and observations. That means no group work is allowed. The learners say, no, in class we are going to do it as group. They can do group work or group discussions before, in preparation. On the day, it must be individual. So each learner must have his or her own worksheet and answer the questions individually under controlled conditions. I'm emphasizing under controlled conditions. Other people, they say under examination conditions. So it's just controlled. It means there must be invigilators. We'll see to it that. But I'm emphasizing once more, colleagues, learners must not be exposed for the first time. Otherwise, it will be like a test. It won't be different from a controlled test now, which will not serve the purpose. This is different from SBA tasks, like a test where, yes, it's under controlled conditions, but they had been given an opportunity to look at it, to practice on how to do it on the day, which is under controlled conditions. We just want them to demonstrate to us that they are able to do the task on their own. Right? I'm not going to read everything, but learners must be given worksheets, once again, under controlled questions. If it is not possible to do the task and answer the worksheet on the same day, that is the last bullet, the teacher must collect the learner's tasks. These tasks must be kept at school, and then the following day they must resume. But I don't encourage the last bullet, colleagues. So you need to have enough time. Just make sure that you have more than 1 hour so that they do it and they finish it on the day, just to make sure that there is less administration from your side of collecting and giving it them back and all that, especially in this current situation of the pandemic, where there is also a possibility that one of the learners unknowingly is infected, or yourself as a teacher, you are positive, COVID-19 positive, and then you may not be knowing at that stage, and then you collect and you give back the following day or the later period or whatever. So it is very wise to just give once, they write and then they submit once. Then, as you usually, now, I'm sure you are able to live under the new normal, that will take those scripts, keep them in a safe place. After a certain number of hours, I think about 72 hours, even if there was a contamination or infection or somebody was infected, that we were told by our sister Department of Health, that after a certain number of hours, the virus dies on paper, and after a number of hours on the furniture, and so on and so on. I'm sure you know those things by now. Right. Then when it comes to moderation, colleagues, the documents that are required in the is obviously the teacher's file with index indicating the tasks, all task instructions, mark guidelines. So when it comes to file, I can simply say it is similar to that one of SPA. I can just put it like that one. You must have the PET guidelines and all the memoranda and all the documents that needs to be there, including the tool that was used to moderate. If you happen to be visited by your subject advisor or by the provincial coordinator or by DPE, even if it's myself, for instance, in schools that I visited, I was using a tool, and in that tool, I left the copy at school. Keep it in the file as evidence that moderation, or not necessarily only moderation, what do we call it? That is when monitoring took place. Very important. So also moderation, there's moderation tool. There are tools that were given to provincial coordinators and subject advisors that I'm sure they are with you now. If you don't have those tools, ask your subject advisors to give you those tools. All right. Very important. Then if we quickly go, colleagues, to learner guidelines, this practical assessment task for grade 12 consists of three, we're going now to learner guidelines. This practical assessment task for grade 12 consists of 3 tasks, as I indicated, task 1, task 2, task 3, and then it contributes 25%, and no group work is allowed. Let me overemphasize that once more. No group work will be allowed. So it must be individual. So learners must, where they are expected to calculate, they must show all calculations. Then the evidence of moderation, colleagues, which is very important. Evidence of moderation, which is very important. There is a page in the PET guidelines where it says, what did the learner get? Moderated mark at school, at district, at province, etc., etc. So very important. That is just that. Then in terms of conclusion, colleagues, on completion of the practical assessment task, learners should be able to demonstrate their understanding of the subject, because this thing is not for marks. To be honest, a lot of people are against practical assessment tests for technical mathematics, because they say, I know, we want to give them marks. No, these learners are practical. They want to do things. They enjoyed it. In the schools that I visited, I also went to them and interviewed them and asked them, how do you feel? And then they said, we enjoyed doing those drawings, measuring, drawing and investigating and applying. They like that kind of thing. It's their strength. That is why they chose technical subjects. So it is very important that they must demonstrate their understanding of the subject, enhance their knowledge, skills, values, and reasoning abilities, as well as establish connections to life outside the classroom, which is what has been lacking in technical mathematics. We have been too abstract. We need now to be more practical, because the CAPS document says we must focus more on application than abstract to address real life and real world challenges. The PET furthermore develops learners' life skills and provide opportunity for learners to engage in their own learning. Very important. Then in the conclusion of that, colleagues, I had indicated that obviously the success of the administration of technical mathematics depends on all of us who are involved. That is myself as a DPE coordinator. I can't do that alone. I need provincial coordinators to work with, which we are working very well. And we need subject advisors to assist us in disseminating the information to the schools and teachers. And the people who are most important in this process are obviously teachers, because they are at the ground. I think Mr. Tlhabane overemphasized that. They are at the ground. They are the ones who are administering this, and we appreciate the role that they play in ensuring that practical assessment task is administered for the first time in a professional way, and all learners complete the task one task at a time, because we don't want a situation where on the last day we say, yo, this learner did not do task 1, task 2, task 3. Let's do it for compliance so that this learner have marks. Sit down, finish all the tasks in one day. No, that is not what we want. One task at a time. Now, I always like to emphasize that we need to remember to ask where we need to, share when we need to, keeping in mind that together everyone achieves more. So all of us will achieve more. That is my meaning of the acronym TEAM. I call it an acronym, TEAM, TEAM. It's like an abbreviation, right? So I'm saying together everyone achieves more. So if you are not sure, please ask. Also, if I am not sure about something or I need advices, I always ask provincial coordinators, to ask subject advisors, to ask yourselves, so that we can take our subject forward. Right. So that was the end of practical assessment task guidelines. And then we went through, colleagues, with task 1, which I believe now the most important part we have done. With task 1, I will just go through it. It was out of 40 marks and administered in term 2, obviously, instead of term 1 in 2021. But please take note, from 2022 onwards, we are going to administer task 1 in term 1. Task 2 in term 2, task 3 in term 3. So it was out of 40 marks. There was a question of time. What time can we allocate? And my response was, it depends on each and every school. You know your learners, but the most important thing, they must finish the task. And then we said anything from 1 hour to 2 hours. That is why we did not want to put a time here, because practical can be tricky. It's not like a test where you say, learners, you have to finish within 1 hour, within 30 minutes. Then we need to give them enough time to finish, because the most important thing is that they must demonstrate their understanding of the practical. Right? So obviously, task 1 was on complex numbers. Let me emphasize again, colleagues, the most important thing in our PET, the way they are structured, which is what I want to emphasize, so that as we develop, as we administer it in grade 10 and 11, we understand where we are coming from and how we structured it. It has got 1, practical investigation, 2, practical application. So it is a combination of practical investigation and practical application. So whatever that you set, however you set it, you must try and make sure that it has got 2 components within it. It has got practical investigation, because that's where we find practical in technical mathematics or in the mathematics field generally. It's under investigations. So learners must investigate something. So when they investigate, they need to conclude something. And then why are they investigating that? What will it help them? How will it help them in engineering field generally? That is what is very important, because in technical mathematics, you're not just calculating for the sake of calculating or just because they have to calculate. Yes, it's teaching problem solving, but where? Problem solving where? In the engineering field, where is it assisting them? For instance, in complex numbers, we found out that they are being used to solve problems in electronics, solve problems in vectors. There can be other fields where, but mostly in electronics. As a person who also did electrical engineering, we used complex numbers when we're working with calculating impedances and so on. So in circuit boards, we use them, obviously, when we are calculating those. Remember, practical application. Remember, practical investigation. So our PET task structure is a combination of practical assessment and practical investigation. So you will see, obviously, you cannot run away from calculations in technical mathematics. This is mathematics for that matter. So this is mathematics in the technical field. But then you cannot run away from calculations. For instance, this one, we said task 1 must just be welcoming a bit to say, learners, just classify for us complex numbers, be able to identify imaginary part as well as real part, right? And complex, and do complex conjugate. You know how they know how to do that. Then fortunately they had done. The nice thing about this one was I was actually administered after they had already completed this topic called complex numbers. The idea was that it goes together with the teaching of complex numbers, so that at the end of the day, it can assist them to understand complex numbers better and where they are applied. But then we had to implement it later, as I have explained, colleagues. So it was just a matter of that. Then question 2 now was focusing more on looking at the Gantt diagram, as well as addition and subtraction and conjugate. That can be done in using the Gantt diagram. So it can be done graphically, the issue of addition, where you are able to find even the resultant. That can be done. So this is similar to what is done in technical sciences, in vectors, or in physical sciences for that matter. So I'm not going to go through question by question, colleagues, because you should have been exposed to this. The nice thing about it is that it is a worksheet, so learners answer here. And then, like I said, after that, there was the issue of converting from graphical to polar notation or polar notation and graphical representation of complex numbers, and converting from polar to rectangular and so on. And then I think this is one of the graphs. I'm not sure. This is one of the grids that was not clear, if I'm not mistaken, but that was not enough that we had to have a what you call an errata on it. I hope all of us received it and learners used it. In the 6 schools that I managed to go to, they used the errata very well, and I appreciate the provincial coordinators for communication, as well as subject advisors, as well as teachers for printing that again on top of printing it and saying learners, giving the instruction that don't use the one in the question paper, use this one now, which will make you be able to draw it nicely. Then there was now start of application. Application, you can see there is the keyword apply. The learners were now applying complex numbers. See how the complex numbers are applied to determine the resultant force of 2 vectors by addition. So they do the calculations there, which is the practical application now. The first one was practical investigation. Then they record their marks here. And then question, the last question also was application in electronics now, the RLC circuits. So they can see there, there was even a picture there, but here it was 2 impedances connected in parallel. And then now, because we were not doing technical science, we didn't want them to even calculate or try and think of a formula used in parallel connection. What we did, we even provided the formula for them. We just wanted them to demonstrate that they are able to do calculations. This question was now testing addition, multiplication, division, and subtraction of complex numbers together in one question. And it is where one of the areas in engineering where complex numbers are used or are applied. That was the end of it. And then the second one was the marking guidelines now. The marking guidelines that we mediated, you will notice that somewhere in each slide, there would be a place where we say notes, where now we would say, okay, let us have notes there in case there is anything that we want to note, starting from the instruction. Was everything clear? Yes, everything was clear. And then when it comes to the first question, on the left-hand side is the question paper, on the right-hand side is the memo. And then we said now, because in the memo now, in the question paper, there was imaginary part and the real part, and then in the marking guideline there was imaginary number and the real number. So we said the note there, the marking guideline was incorrect, so it was supposed to be replaced, the number was supposed to be replaced by part. So I hope this is what you received and that happened. And the marking guideline continues, colleagues, and continues, and where we needed to have a note, then we had a note, for instance, where we said what you call, if they don't write the resultant, then, if they don't write the difference, then it will be implied by plotting the resultant. It means that they know what to do. The conjugate is also implied if they correctly plot it. They don't have to write it, that the conjugate is that. So no, not necessarily. They don't have to do that if they didn't do it, all right? As long as it is there in the graph. So we said it is implied, and so on, colleagues. I'm not going to go point by point, because in less than 5 minutes, I need to finish this so that we can have more time to engage, and I will look at the Q&A as well as the chat to see if there are any questions that need me to respond to them. So please continue putting those questions in the Q&A as well as the chats, so I will be able to view them and be able to at the end of the day to respond to them. Right. So I'm not going to go through that. You have you're supposed to have it. If you don't have it, you are going to get it. It will be posted in this platform, and you can always get it from your subject advisor. You can always get it from the provincial coordinator. You can even get it from me. You can just indicate here, and then I will make sure that also it reaches you if it has not. But I believe that you have received it. So this was the marking guidelines. I'm not going to go through it for task 1. Then mediation of task 2, which was obviously done last week with subject advisors and provincial coordinators. This week currently done with you, colleagues, I believe. So it is on Euclidean geometry as indicated, and you will see the aim that is indicated there, the aim that is indicated there, and then you will obviously see what is it that needs to be done there. There is the objective. Two main things. One, to investigate. We call that practical investigation. Two, to apply. We call that practical application. So basically, in summary, for this, there were two activities. There are two activities rather. Activity one is on midpoint theorem. Activity 2 is on proportionality theorem. In each activity, there are two main things that we do. One, we do practical investigation. Two, we do practical application. So each activity is having two tasks. Task one, or rather, is having two questions. Question one focuses on practical investigation. Question two focuses on practical application. Remember, colleagues, once more, in technical mathematics, our practical assessment task is a combination of two things: practical investigation as well as practical application. And the material required is indicated there. Everything that is required. Theory is about the midpoint theorem, and then the procedure according to steps. What the steps are there? Draw a triangle. I'll draw it using a mouse, for instance. Draw a triangle, right? Then after you have done that, what do? You go to number 2, use a ruler to measure. You label it ABC. You use a ruler to measure AB, AC, and BC, the sides. I would say, if I would be encouraging learners, when they say draw any triangle, learners must be smart and draw it with lengths already. Usually, even numbers length are usually working nicely, and the units of measurement we are not specific, because one learners to be creative and to see themselves which units must they use, of which millimeters work nicely. You don't want to have 7 centimeters, and then when you want to get a half of 7, it becomes 3,5 centimeters, and then now you're starting to work with commas and so on and so on. So to avoid that, though learners can be able to work with that, but to avoid making it complicated, so they must have purposeful measurements, even though it says any triangle, right? Then the steps continue, colleagues, where they have to mark the midpoints, and then after that, take a piece of string and put it along a line side BC and cut it using a pair of scissors and stick it there, or rather first put it in half, or rather fold it halfway, then put it in the line DB, DE, the one that they marked the D and E, the midpoints, to see if what is going to happen there, and so on and so on. I'm not going to go through, colleagues, it. My presentation is more on how do we administer it, not necessarily on step-by-step way of actually doing it, because now in 2 minutes, I want to quickly be done so that we can have enough time for discussions, colleagues. So basically, task 2 goes like that, and then there are observations and conclusions where learners now must observe. Remember, we said it is individual. Once more, colleagues, I'm emphasizing this should be with learners already, so that they are asking their friends, their colleagues, they are working in groups in the afternoons, in the mornings, during their own spare time, to assist each other, get assistance from whoever outside to help them. How do you stick a string on a paper? How do you use a tracing paper? And if you don't have a tracing paper, what can you use? People are creative. Demonstrate it. Then they will now, in this page, write down their observations and conclude at the end of the day what conclusion. And then number 2 is now practical application. Where do you apply this? Because we're not just saying.
We're just quickly going to see if we can get our speaker back online. We're quickly going through the networking session to make sure that he's back online with us.
Then I've tried to connect with the other network just to make sure that lose me for long, but I guess you lost me when I was I had already finished, or I was just left with a few slides, because I think the most important thing was that we go through and we see basically how we administer practical assessment task, which I think at the end of the day I managed to go through. It was now going through all the tasks. If we managed to go to at least task 1 and task 2, then task 3 I was just running through. I think I got lost. I lost the connection when I was on task 3, which I just ran through. The most important thing, colleagues, once more, is that our practical assessment task in technical mathematics consists of 1, practical investigation, and then 2, practical application. So even when we set it for grade 10 and 11, we must just make sure that we must just make sure that it's a combination of practical investigation, and then after having doing practical investigation, then what do learners need to why do learners have to investigate that particular concept? Where is it going to assist them in engineering field or in real life situation? Then once they do that, it means they have to have a problem or two problems to solve. We can't run away from calculations. Yes, we can't run away, but calculations with purpose. Where are they going to use that concept to solve them? To assist them solve problems. That's it, colleagues. Thank you very much for your attention. I will now check if there are any questions in the Q&A. Please assist me. I'm not sure if there is anything. I think I see 3 questions. I see Mkolisi Sitole. Question is SA sums updated to accommodate PET for reporting purposes. SA sums is updated, yes. However, we do not use practical assessment task for reporting for terms like term 1, term 2, and term 3. So we use only SBA for reporting in term 1, term 2, and term 3. Then we are going to use practical assessment task only for resulting at the end of the year. In other words, what we are going to be doing, we are going to be saying at the end of the year now, this is SBA, it constitutes 25% for grade 12. This is PET, it constitutes 25%, and then exams constitute 25% at the end of the year. Right? So we don't use it for reporting for term reporting. Let me put it like that one. For term reporting, we don't use practical assessment task. I know other subjects do that because some of them have few SBA tasks. I think like in technical sciences, they use, for instance, I think in term 2, they only have the experiment to report on. So it means in technical mathematics, we have enough to report on using SBA. Then we want to use it at the end of the year, just for reporting, for final reporting. So it means now SA sums is updated at the end of the year. Remember, in SA sums, there are 2 types of weightings. There is weighting for terms, and then there is overall weighting. So it means that hours feature in overall weighting. I hope I've answered you, Mr. Sitole. Then there is a question. There is also a question: are we getting an exemplar or PET task for grade 10 and 11 for 2021? Well, that one, we discussed it with as provincial coordinators, colleagues. And as provincial coordinators, we discussed it and we agreed that let the provinces or districts or teachers set their own. However, if there is a school or there is a district which perhaps is struggling, then we can always share. We always encourage sharing of assessment tasks, because PET is not like SBA where it has to be controlled on the day, and if you don't write on the day, then you can't write the following day. So you can always get it from other province, other district, and so on and so on. So the most important thing, colleagues, is that we must get the idea from the grade 12 practical assessment task, which is what I've been emphasizing, that as long as your task you call practical assessment task consists of 1 practical investigation, that means learners are investigating practically. When I say practical investigation in this context, colleagues, try by all means to ensure that your investigation is as practical as possible. By practical, I mean include questions where learners are going to measure, where learners are going to draw. Those are practical. Where learners are going to use a tracing paper, are going to use a string or a twine, are going to use something physical. They are going to use something physical to solve a certain problem. So that is what is very important. Now, there is also another question where the technical mathematics curriculum been revised as requested by other forums. I think now this question, I hope I'm pronouncing your surname very well. I think it's Mr. Lodvik. All right. I hope I'm pronouncing it very well, Mr. Wimpy Lodvik, where the technical mathematics curriculum been revised as requested by other forums. Now, the issue of revision it has its own processes, colleagues. So it's a step-by-step process. In my plans, for instance, as a DPE coordinator, I put that together with the subject committee consisting of provincial coordinators. I put it under medium-term plans that we have to say we need to revise it. By revising, we call it strengthening of CAPS, strengthening, because it's not like we're starting from over, we just strengthen it, where we say, is this topic really relevant in technical mathematics for technical learners? Should we tone it down a bit? Should we tone it up a bit? Should we add a few concepts within a topic, and so on and so on? Then we do that. So that one is a process. It takes time, and it must go through different levels like the NCAT, the Council of Education Ministers, in fact, starting from the Adcorp for approval. So it's a process. So that is a process which is continuing, but it's not going to be an overnight thing that it will be revised like that. And then next year or next month, we say we have a new CAPS, or we have actually even the abridged CAPS section 4. It took time for us to say, we don't need this, we need that, we need to add that and subtract that. But then it ended up being approved in December 2020. So even this one, it is a process. I would love to hear colleagues from you, for instance, Mr. Lodvig, to also channel it through the closest person. You can even channel it to DPE. My email is Njomeni, njomeni.m@dpe.gov.za. I am sure you will be able to see the details under speakers. I think there are details there, but you can always put it. So you can send it to the closest. If you are not a teacher, for instance, you are in the field outside there, but you are having an interest, you can always go to the nearest Department of Education and then ask for a person responsible for technical mathematics to submit your inputs or your suggestions. We always welcome suggestions from anywhere, in the industries, in the universities, that is Department of Higher Education, subject advisors, teachers, whoever is having an interest in the teaching of technical subjects in particular, because we want to make sure that we are producing more artisans as per the National Development Plan. And technical mathematics must play a major role as an enabler. It must not be the subject that is keeping learners away from doing technical subjects. They say, yo, I can't do technical subjects because I'm running away from technical mathematics. No ways. It must not be like that. So for any suggestions, colleagues, please make sure that you channel them. So you can always contact me via my email, via even my landline or my phone or whatever, WhatsApp, anything that you have, you can always channel it. Obviously, channel it through your subject advisor if you're a teacher and so on, right? So there's also a question. I see your response, sir. Then there's also another question. Is there a possibility, that is from Nyasha, is there a possibility of accessing the slides that you presented? I only managed to join in towards the end of the presentation due to connectivity issues. Okay, no problem. Like Dr. Malinga indicated in the chats during plenary, it will be made available. This platform, so you are able to log in with your account anytime for the next 11 months. If we feel there is anything that we need to post, because we'll use this platform that Sasol has blessed us with, together with the team organizing, to share information, any latest developments, any information for the next 11 months. I will communicate it together with the subject committee, because that is the most important structure in the country for the subject, because it gets inputs from subject advisors and teachers, and then that's how they quickly reach the Department of Basic Education. So we will also, after discussing anything and agreeing, and anything that we need to share, be it any kind of resource, we'll be able to share it in this platform. Please make sure that you don't abandon this platform after this conference. You continue from time to time logging in, and then we will channel it to Sasol. Sasol is really assisting us with the organizing team to put even the presentations are already with Sasol already, so they will be posted here. And these presentations, by the way, are the same presentations that were presented by the subject advisors, by the provincial coordinators, and that I presented to the subject coordinators, provincial coordinators. We had a very successful, on last Friday, successful meeting with the subject advisors and provincial coordinators, where I was presenting 2 of these presentations, task 2 as well as task 3. And the presentations were shared to the provincial coordinators and subject advisors. So you are always free to get them, but to get direct access, colleagues, you can always access them from this platform now for the next 11 months. So we thank you, Sasol, for affording us that opportunity, which makes it easy for anyone who is interested, anyone who attended the conference, to be able to access any kind of document that was used in this conference and documents that will be useful thereafter. I'm not sure. I don't see more questions now, unless, okay, I went to Q&A. Maybe let me go to chats. I'm not sure if I see there may be one chat only. I will just go to the chats. So you can just help me, colleagues, and assist me. Okay, it was from the studio welcoming, and then Julie Ralai Maleka indicating a network challenge, which I think and then Londi Wezulu. Okay, thank you very much. I think this is part of the organizing team. Thank you very much, colleagues. And I think those yes were meaning, you can hear me when I was asking if you can hear me. From my side, colleagues, once more, thank you very much for joining this breakaway. I hope it assisted in a way to add to the information that you obviously had before. About practical assessment tasks for technical mathematics. For me, as the DPE official, it has really assisted me in ensuring that at the end of the day, I am able to reach out directly to everybody who is interested in the teaching of technical mathematics in our beautiful country, for the benefit of our young people of this country, boys and girls who want to pursue careers in engineering, who end up being on the street because they fail technical mathematics. I want to say, colleagues, let's push, let's continue pushing hard and assisting each other and making sure that at the end of the day we benefit. I can say we are working very hard with the subject committee as well as different directorates within Department of Basic Education. For instance, next week we are finalizing the development of the self-study guides with the team of provincial specialists, and we gave it to a few colleagues to review. So we are correcting those few mistakes that they picked up. And then we are also at the same time on the 6th, 7th, and 8th of July, developing material for workshops that will happen in August. So you are going to get information from your provinces. Due to the current situation in terms of the third wave and all that, we said we can always do some of these things virtually. So we are definitely going to have those virtual meetings and in trying to assist any colleagues who need assistance in terms of workshops and so on. From my side, thank you very much, colleagues. I am not sure from the side, from the studio side, if there is anything that I missed out, please indicate so that I don't miss anything that the colleagues raised before perhaps we can say this is the end. Let me just wait from your side. I see in the charts, I see there are 3. Maybe there are new things. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Welcome, colleagues. Thank you very much from my side too. Okay, so I see the message also from the studio in Johannesburg, thanking everybody who managed. Otherwise, thank you very much, colleagues. This marks the end of our breakaway. If there are any questions also, colleagues, in connection with Mr. Tlabane's presentation about performance in technical mathematics, and you are having suggestions or you want to ask more, please feel free also to continue asking here, and we can always answer those and suggest if you have any suggestions through your subject advisor, through provincial coordinators, and also directly to DPE using the emails that are also there in the website for anything that you want to add. Thank you very much once more, and goodbye.